Welcome back to Scene by Scene. Today, I'll be talking about a 2013 Spanish sci-fi thriller called The Last Days. The world in 2013 faces a strange epidemic. People suddenly develop a deadly fear of going outside. If they step out into the open, they die within seconds. Cities all over the world quickly become empty, with no one outside. Mark Delgado has been trapped in his office building for 3 months, living off cafeteria food. Along with his co-workers, he's been digging through the parking garage, trying to reach the subway for a safer way out. One day, Mark gets angry when he sees someone broke into a car to steal a GPS. His frustration pushes him to dig harder, and that's what finally breaks through the wall. They now have a path to the subway. As everyone lines up for supplies, Mark notices his boss Enrique has the stolen GPS. Mark confronts him, and Enrique agrees to talk in private, but only if Mark keeps quiet about the GPS. Mark remembers how harsh Enrique used to be at work. He fired people easily and pressured Mark to finish a project on time, no matter how hard it was. Even when Mark worked late into the night, Enrique didn't care. That night, Mark promised his girlfriend Julia he'd be home for dinner, but a computer crash made him late. Julia had already eaten and was working on toys for her store. She brought up the idea of having a baby, but Mark said it wasn't the right time. Later, on the news, a teen who stayed indoors for months had filmed his own suicide, a chilling sign of what was happening. The next day, at work, the same video made everyone anxious. One coworker, Rivera, got so nervous he ran off. Another noticed he hadn't even showered in days. Back in the present, Mark tells Enrique he wants to find Julia. He offers Enrique food and supplies in exchange for using the GPS to guide him. At first, Enrique says no, but when Mark threatens to expose the GPS theft, Enrique agrees. They head into the subway tunnels using a map to save the GPS battery. The tunnels are full of other survivors and danger. Soon, a teen steals Enrique's bag with the GPS. Mark and Enrique chase him and end up cornered by the teen's brother, a former cop with a gun. A fight breaks out and Enrique kills the cop. Mark recovers the GPS, now cracked but still working. Enrique promises to stick to the deal, and they continue their journey. Mark remembers the early days of the outbreak. Later, at work, Rivera was fired for sleeping in the office. Guards dragged him outside, but he died within seconds. That's when Mark knew something was seriously wrong. He found Rivera's locker filled with survival gear. That night, he told Julia what happened and they comforted each other. Back in the present, Mark wakes up and fears Enrique abandoned him, but Enrique returns with a plastic bag to protect the GPS from water. They continue through the tunnels and eventually drop into the sewers. The GPS leads them to Mark's old apartment building. To get inside, they set up a gas canister and try to explode it with the gun. Mark finally hits it, and the blast opens a path. Inside, the building is crowded with refugees. When Mark finds his old apartment, strangers are living there. He fights to get inside, but they explain the place was empty when they arrived. Mark finds a photo of Julia and asks about her, but they haven't seen her. Then he discovers something shocking, an ultrasound picture. Julia was pregnant, and he didn't know. He remembers their last argument. Julia talked about the growing panic and the government's denial. Mark ranted about people having babies during the crisis. That's when Julia realized he never really wanted children. The next day, Mark tried calling her, but Andrea picked up saying Julia didn't want to talk. Desperate, Mark went outside, but the fear took over and he ran back inside, trapped. Now it's raining, and Mark and Enrique help collect water. That night, they make spears and rest. In the morning, they argue. Mark wants to go to Julia's workplace. Enrique refuses. Their deal was only to reach the apartment. They fight, but Enrique finally reveals the truth. He wants to see his father one last time. His dad was paralyzed in a hospital. Mark agrees to go with him, and they continue their journey. They pass through a church and light a fire, but the fire attracts a bear, which chases them. Enrique trips, and Mark saves him. Together, they defeat the bear by luring it into a spear trap. They later cook the meat and share stories. Enrique admits he would have fired Mark even if he'd finished his project, but now he's thankful Mark stayed. Later, they meet a family in the tunnels. The family says the hospital Enrique wanted to reach has burned down. Shocked, Enrique runs to a building to see for himself, and it's true. He's heartbroken. He breaks a window and prepares to jump, but Mark stops him. Enrique gives Mark the seeds he had saved for Julia's baby and tells him to go on without him. Mark reaches the mall, hoping to find Julia. Inside, he finds Andrea's mother dead. Then he discovers a note. Andrea and Julia are in the supermarket area. He gets there, but it's barricaded. Guards threaten him, but he shows them Julia's photo. They check if she's there. Suddenly, people who had been following Mark break in, fighting for food. In the chaos, Mark finds Andrea. She says Julia went to see her doctor. As they try to escape, a flaming beam traps Andrea. She can't. Go outside and dies. Mark is attacked, but Enrique appears and saves him again. A kid stabs Enrique, but he spares him. Despite the wound, Enrique helps Mark escape. They find a movie theater with a view of the doctor's office. Mark finally sees Julia through the window. They both cry in joy. Mark runs to tell Enrique but finds him dying. Enrique urges him to stop complaining and cross the street. Mark steps outside. He's overwhelmed, sick, and dizzy. His ears bleed, but he crawls forward, keeping his eyes on Julia. At last, she appears in front of him, and Mark realizes he made it. They're reunited. In the end, Mark and Julia build a new life. They collect rainwater, plant the seeds Enrique gave them, and raise their son. When the boy grows up, he can go outside, proving the next generation is immune to the fear. Years later, teenage wanderers arrive. Mark and Julia let their son leave with them, hoping he can explore the outside world and help rebuild society. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this recap, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss more amazing stories.